Welcome to Mark's British Airways Fleet Update, looking at short and long-haul fleets.
Thanks so much, and it's time for that British Airways Fleet Update. We're going to have a look at the short-haul fleet first of all. First time in a long while, all 28 of the Airbus A319s in the British Airways fleet are operational out of their London Heathrow base. But while we're talking about Airbus 319s, sad news, I guess, but Golf Echo Uniform Papa Lima, which has been stored and out of use at Madrid for a few years, that aircraft was last week scrapped, and here's some footage of the scrap company getting to grips with that piece of work. So a sad bit of news. Well, various members of the London Gatwick British Airways Euroflyer fleet have been away for maintenance. Golf Alpha Tango Hotel in Birmingham, Golf Alpha Tango Mike in Madrid, and Tango Lima also returning from Madrid. We've seen one or two other Airbus A320 family aircraft in Birmingham, for example, Golf Delta Bravo Charlie Bravo, and British Airways are clearly trying to get maintenance done as quickly as possible and looking for opportunities to move that work around if that delivers the best results. Of course, we've recently transitioned from the summer to the winter timetable schedules across British Airways, and that's an opportunity for British Airways to end the wet leases that it's had with Danish Air Transport, DAT. They've had two aircraft operating since August out of London Gatwick, an A320 Oscar Yankee Romeo Uniform Yankee that flew back to Billund last week, and an A321 Oscar Yankee Romeo Uniform that flew back to Sofia. One of the British Airways Euroflyer A320s, Golf Mike India Delta Oscar, returned to Gatwick after a wet lease to its mainline sister organisation. So in just a moment, I thought I'd move across and talk to you about the long-haul fleet. But before I do that, thanks for joining us on Mark's Trains, Planes and Trams. Thanks for subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do press the subscribe button and click on notifications. I hope you've also taken the opportunity to have a look through the channel and see some of the other videos here. I've just posted in the last few days a flight review of a flight I took from Los Angeles across to Doha in Qatar Airways Q Suites. I'll provide a link to that video here, and I hope you'll take a moment to take a look at that video. Well, let's have a look at the long-haul fleet now and see what's happening in the world of long-haul with British Airways. We'll kick off, as we often do, with the Airbus A380 fleet. And you know, for a fleet of 12 aircraft, British Airways always seem to provide us with plenty of news and plenty of developments. Well, back on Saturday the 26th of October, it was the final scheduled flight for the British Airways A380 fleet out of Dallas Fort Worth. The final flight until January, when flights are booked to resume. Now, this is part of the British Airways programme to reduce the number of A380s in traffic from 10 to 9 to give them the scope to catch up with some maintenance and overhaul work. And it was Echo Alpha, the first of the A380 fleet, that was given the job of making that last flight across the Atlantic to Dallas, turning around and coming back. And the aircraft took off from Dallas, but as the flight crew went to retract the landing gear, they ran into difficulty and were not able to retract the landing gear. And you can see here the departure from Dallas soon turned into a number of circuits around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and eventually the aircraft, after dumping fuel, returned back to Dallas. The flight was cancelled. The passengers were dispersed on other flights. Not an easy job with so many passengers to deal with. The aircraft was given attention in Dallas. I think maintenance technicians were flown out by British Airways, and eventually 5 days later, on the 31st of October, it was ready to make its return with no passengers on back to London Heathrow as the BA 9606. The aircraft was fit for traffic after that, and it quickly set to work operating a Los Angeles flight. Similarly, Echo disgraced itself on the same day that Echo Alpha returned. So 31st of October, that aircraft was taken out of service in Miami, sat on the ground for a couple of days, and then returned empty to London as the BA 9609. So with availability reduced from 10 to 9, that's given British Airways the opportunity to send another aircraft for maintenance and repairs at Lufthansa Technik in Manila. So Echo Foxtrot took off on the 3rd of November and made its way right across the other side of the world on an empty flight from London Heathrow to Manila. Now, British Airways has been trying to use the BA11 and the BA12 to facilitate those moves to and from Manila to reduce the empty aircraft flying literally halfway around the world. But the aircraft currently in Manila, which is Echo Juliet, is not ready to return to London, so they couldn't do that. So it was a long flight from London Heathrow across to Manila. So that quite unusually gives us a situation where there's two of the aircraft in Lufthansa Technik's facility in Manila. And just as I finish putting this update together, news emerges on the 6th of November of an incident with the London-Miami morning flight from London Heathrow with the BA 207 this morning. So aircraft Echo Charlie in the A380 Fleet took off about an hour and a half late, suffered an engine failure, I understand, after departure. The pilots got the aircraft up into the air, took it out over the English Channel. It undertook 22 loops round a holding pattern in the English Channel, perfectly flown, it would appear, by the autopilot, and during that time fuel was dumped and the aircraft was prepared for a return back to London Heathrow. It landed 4.5 hours later. Pretty annoying, I guess, for the passengers on board. It landed after all the American flights from BA and other airlines had already departed, so they'll have to fly later that day on other flights with connections, or they'll have to overnight in London and fly out in the morning. So that aircraft was flying under the call sign Speedbird 3 Golf, and Echo Charlie had operated the previous day but had had a few hours rest, and it does have allocated piece of work for the following day, so it'll be interesting to see if British Airways do get on and repair that aircraft with its allocation for the Dubai flight. Well, relatively quiet as always really on the Airbus A350 fleet, which continues to perform well and seems to be giving British Airways comparatively less to worry about. But it was interesting to see on the 3rd of November that Bravo Sierra, which is the newest of the A350 fleet, flew an additional flight, the BA 205, from London Heathrow to Orlando. Many of you will know that's unusual because the Orlando flights usually operate from Gatwick, but this is part of a charity venture. The flight operated out with passengers and was available to book on, but the return flight is part of the charity event, which flew young children who've had this amazing chance to visit Florida, flew them out 2 weeks ago, and this aircraft was bringing them back. Let's have a look at the 777 fleet. Well, British Airways launched a new 777 route, London Gatwick to Bangkok, on Monday the 28th of October. Golf Yankee Mike Alpha, part of the Gatwick 777 fleet, was given the job of making that maiden flight. Quite a bit of fuss on arrival in Bangkok. You can see that from the photographs here, and good to see British Airways getting that route underway for the winter season. Also interesting to note, on the 29th of October, Heathrow aircraft Golf Victor India Alpha made its way across to Taipei. It did land during a bit of disruption due to weather. Flight Radar 24 was suggesting the aircraft had diverted to another airport on the island of Taiwan, but that appears not to be the case. And after the crew had their statutory period of rest, they brought back Golf Sierra Tango Bravo Golf, which is a 777-300, from maintenance in the Taipei facility. Also pleasing to be able to report that there are updates from Cardiff, that Golf Victor India Victor is progressing well with club suites fitment, and very much hope to see that aircraft returning to London Heathrow and returning to operation very soon. So that takes us on to the Boeing 787 fleet. Well, we've previously reported that the latest 787-8, which is Golf Zulu Bravo Juliet Bravo, has returned to traffic after club suites fitment, but we haven't yet seen the next 787-8 depart for Cardiff for its fitment. So that program isn't moving quite as fast as no doubt many people would like. But better news, I suppose, although British Airways have continued with their plans to reduce schedules, although 787-9 Golf Zulu Bravo Juliet Echo remains at Cardiff. It's been there since June. It has no engines, as I understand it. And we're still waiting for news on the new 787-10, which is Golf Zulu Bravo Lima. Lima, as we understand it, that will be made available at Charleston in Carolina and undertaking tests and getting ready to fly across to the UK to enter service hopefully later this year, maybe early next year. That's the last of the 787-10s fitted with Rolls-Royce engines before we see the next 6 delivered, which will come with the General Electric engines. And one final bit of news before we go. Hot off the press from British Airways, it's emerged as the summer schedules for next year in 2025 are revised and reviewed following the shortage of aircraft that we know BA face. British Airways are pulling out of their London Heathrow to Dallas Fort Worth flights. We've seen the flight this summer operated with an Airbus A380 transitioning for the winter timetable to a Boeing 777-300 aircraft, and the plan had been to transition to an A350-1000 for the summer schedule next year. The A350 has been redeployed to another route, and British Airways have suspended that Dallas Fort Worth flight for the whole of summer 2025. Remains to be seen if it re-emerges in the winter schedules 2025. That obviously gives them another aircraft to play with as they tackle the requirements to get on with the club suite fitment, but also dealing with the Rolls-Royce engines on the 787 fleet, which is the formal reason that their press spokesman has given. And it's interesting, as I announce this news, just to reflect on the history of this route. British Airways has served the Dallas-Fort Worth route ever since it took over British Caledonian in the late 1980s. Originally, the route operated from London Gatwick using former BCAL DC-10s. It transitioned to a 777 and then moved with the deregulation of the routes to North America from London Gatwick to London Heathrow. Most of its life it has seen that Boeing 777 on Heathrow departures, but was enjoying the A380, I think, in recent times. So it's a bit of a shame to see BA withdrawing from such a big, important American hub. And it's an American hub in both senses of the word. It's an American hub in America, but it's also an American Airlines hub. Dallas, Fort Worth, the headquarters of American. So not entirely surprising that at the same time BA have announced their withdrawal, American Airlines are stepping up their frequency from 4 to 5 flights a day. 5 flights each served with American Boeing 777s with BA code shares. So an interesting development there. And my absolutely final bit of route information for this British Airways update is their decision taken in the first week of November, actually November the 7th, to suspend flights to Kuwait and to Bahrain from London Heathrow from the end of March 2025. The Bahrain route a particular challenge because there's a British Airways crew base there, which means there won't be any work for those colleagues and that depot will be closed down. The fact they're closing the crew depot suggests there's no immediate intention to put those flights back. There's not a particularly big leisure market for Bahrain or Kuwait. And then the second challenge is that I covered in a previous update British Airways' decision to launch a number of new routes across to the US in summer 2025. Now, there's only going to be probably 1 or 2 new aircraft delivered between now and the start of the summer schedule in March 2025. And it's likely the Rolls-Royce engines issues are not going to be solved anytime soon. And British Airways needs to make progress with its programme to fit club suites to its 787 and then its Airbus A380 fleet. So all of that, I suppose, makes sense, but a pretty sad end of the road for 2 important routes, both of which have quite a bit of heritage in British Airways and its predecessors. That's it from Mark's Trains, Planes and Trams for this British Airways fleet update. I'll catch you again here on this YouTube channel very soon.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe and click the notification button so you don't miss any of the great trips Mark has coming your way on this YouTube channel.